All right, so I got a few quick things I'll cover, and then we'll hop into the more meaty stuff. Now I'll just put my 3-year-old on. The merchandise that everybody has ordered has started shipping. Not all the orders are shipping at once, but some of the orders have shipped already, and others are shipping as things get made. Um, the scroll groups have been messed with pretty heavily. So you might want to check the scroll groups post. It was just linked a little while ago in Discord. And make sure your group is still whole. And if it wasn't, you might need to be recoordinated a little bit. With that, we'll get started on the rest of the stuff. So we've had some meetings with the guild council, and I just had a meeting earlier today with the veterans, and I met with the officers and so on and so forth about primarily about the state of the game. I'm sure you guys have noticed that, or maybe you haven't, that there are less people playing the game than there were, uh, which is kind of part of a normal game cycle when a game comes out, but there are some other factors at play in this particular game. And I kind of wanted to go over those in a meeting because they really play into what we're doing as a guild. Um, the first of those factors, or the first of the things I want to cover is you notice that Dom cut a bunch of the channels. And so that should be a pretty good indicator to you that there are less people playing. And so while it doesn't look like it while you're running around, it's a definite fact there are less people playing than there were. One of the things that they've done to combat that is to increase their advertising budget. Um, so hopefully that'll help, but I think that it won't. I think that what they really need to do is release Node Wars. Originally, they told us pre-release that Node Wars would be the first thing that gets released, along with the first content release. And that basically they were going to give us the same version that was out on the Russian servers. They then revised that and they said, well, we're going to release it down the road a little bit, but it won't be far off, probably a couple of months in. And then they later revised that to say, we're going to give you, or we want to give you the latest version that's on Korea. That'll probably be released with the Valencia patch, but that's going to be delayed. And so we don't know when. And that's kind of where things are right now. But the more they talk, the more indefinite they get about exactly when we're going to get Node Wars. And then one of the other things that's really up in the air is they're about to change the Node War system on the Korean servers yet again. And so that kind of throws things up in the air some more. I think that people here in the US really don't care. We could care less which version of it we get. We just want a version of it that's functional in some way, because that's where our meaningful PvP comes from. Um, so that's a factor, and that's a big factor as far as guilds are concerned. So that's going to lead me into point number two, and that is guilds. Guilds are having a real problem right now. Several big guilds have folded. Several of them have left the game. Some of them have merged. Some of them have just collapsed. Some of them have, um, leaders left and then they fell apart. That kind of thing has gone on. And then all of them have just had attrition of some sort, including us. Um, and then smaller guilds, have had the same types of problems. And a lot of those have done other things, some of those have been absorbed by other guilds and some of them have merged and various things that have gone on. All of that's kind of what you would expect, but it's indicative of the game being what it is. And that's
Mhm.
playing into kind of the conversation that I'm having right now. Although it's one-sided so far, it won't be the whole time. I just want to get all of my points made. Um, so when you're talking about the satisfaction of the player, um, when it comes to playing this game, the whole of the satisfaction for any individual player really doesn't or shouldn't be coming from their guild. I mean, the guild's a pretty integral part of it, but it's only a part of it. And I think that if you're playing and you're looking for your guild to make your whole playing experience enjoyable, then things are going to fail and fall apart. And there is a big category of people right now that are jumping around from guild to guild to guild to guild to guild and not finding satisfaction and thinking that every guild that they join has some fault and they're finding some fault, because they're just not realizing that there are some faults with the game right now. Um, and they're not identifying what those are and saying, okay, well, those, let's just call the spade, right? Let's say Node Wars isn't out and it should be. And let's say the grind after
User joined your
55
channel.
is really a rough grind. Um, and all of those things being said, we talked about it and we said, okay, well, is this a game that we want to ditch? And the answer is just a resounding no. I mean, we want to stay, we want to continue to play and hold out for the Node Wars system because, for us, it's really about PvP, but it's kind of about meaningful PvP. Um, there's some enjoyment to be gained from fighting over, grind spots and things like that, but only to a point. And there's some enjoyment to be gained from just drumming up a war and fighting somebody, but then you kind of end up at the safe zone and you're fighting in and out of the safe zone, and that kind of really gets old. So then it's only to a point, right? But there's a lot of enjoyment to be derived over going out and battling in the open world over objectives. Really like the idea of that. It's what turned us onto this game in the first place. And I think that's really where the bread and the butter is at. So all that being said, you still got to get your fighting force up to a fighting force level. We have to do that for Node Wars, and we have to do that for our right now PvP. So we need everybody to kind of get to 55, and we need to get your gear to, plus 15 and get it enhanced. That in and of itself is not a difficult thing to do. Grinding after that doesn't matter so much. Getting yourself entertained after that can be a difficult thing. We know that because we've had a lot of people get to that point and then leave the game. Um, or we've had people leave the guild and leave for other guilds, um, to seek greener pastures, only to find out the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's really still the same issues. And so, um, Having made all of those points, here's what I think that you can expect over the next month or two. I think that that right now we probably have 15 core members who are really active by our standards. And our standard for an active member is, somebody who's on a lot at peak times, plays more than 15 hours a week, um, and is on pretty much every day. So we probably have, we think, 15-ish of those people. And then we think we have another 15 who are casual, that are on regularly. So they're probably on maybe every day, every other day, but not as much as that. And then the rest of the people in the guild, you probably wouldn't even notice if they were gone. So if we look right now at how many people are attending the meeting, there's 36 in comms minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 29. So that means our numbers that we estimated in our council meeting are just about right on the money. Except maybe we have a little bit more than we thought. That or everybody showed up for the meeting, which I doubt. Um, we'll continue to recruit. I think that we'll continue to see some of those recruits guild hop as we have, or obviously some of them won't like it, and then some of them will stick. So there'll be some turnover in the recruit department. Some of them will get kicked out, like we've done in the past. Um, so overall, I think the numbers will probably flatline at a point. And we talked about it. Does it matter to us if the number, as far as the guild is concerned, is 30 or if it's 50? And the answer really was no, as long as we could continue to have enough events and have enough people for them and continue to have fun. And so we discussed what those events are and things. And so what are those? Doing boss scrolls. Well, you can continue to do those. Doing subjugations and things like that. Those are kind of fun. You can continue to do those. Having grind groups, doesn't take many people to put together a grind group as long as they're on at the right time, which our guild tends to operate at a peak time because most everybody has a job. Um, and then in our off peak, we usually have enough people on to do stuff. Um, and then you want to have enough people on to be able to do PvP and to support PvP when it breaks out. But you need to have those people be geared, because you can't have one guy be 55 and have gear and have everybody else be level 50 and no gear. It just doesn't work. So yeah, because that's the way they work. So what we're going to do is we're gonna get somebody to be an events coordinator. Um, we haven't picked out the person yet, but we've gone ahead and started kind of a list of ideas for what those events are. And above and beyond the standard stuff that I've already listed, we're going to do some more events, kind of like the event that we did today. But we talked about doing some things like maybe, going out on a boat together and finding a guild that's all out fishing and war decking them and just killing them all out on their boat. um, Doing area invasions where, for example, we go and do a hex invasion and just have everybody farm hex for drops. for a period of time. You can do the same thing from Marcus Shadow. You could do the same thing with Pirate Island, so on and so forth. Having boat races or horse races, um, so on and so forth. Coordinating with some other guilds that we're allied with, and maybe doing like a multi-guild horse race where the opposing guilds could shoot each other off of the horses with the muskets. Having some coordinated wars with the other guilds where we do Reblath wars. So maybe like 20 on 20, but everybody's in Reblath gear so that the levels and the gear don't matter. Um, that might be neat. So those are just a few of the ideas that we pulled out of the hat um, to fill the gap that the game is missing in the interim. And then once we kind of reach the 6 month mark, or once we start reaching the, uh, or once we know when the release for Node Wars is going to come out, we'll do a mailer to our user base of veterans and people who've previously been in the guild that went inactive. That wouldn't be people who quit, but just people who went inactive and off the radar. And we'll highlight all the things that the guild's doing, and we'll kind of highlight that the Node Wars is coming out and what to expect, and so on and so forth. And then we'll get our resurgence of players that way. Additionally, I think that once Node Wars is coming out, I think a lot of people will come back to the game to check that out, just in general. And there'll be a recruiting base that isn't just people jumping from one guild to the other. Um, and, guilds are going to continue to collapse over time, but that's not the best recruiting base in the world. That's not as good as having a game that's healthy enough to have a constant influx of new players, or um, being able to have players that are returning because the game is releasing content that is attracting players to the game. So, of all those points and all of that stuff, who would like to discuss any of that?
Some good points, and it sounds like some good activities to do in the. I'd be up for any of those things.
If you guys come up with any other fun ideas, go and throw them on the forum, and when we get a coordinator set up, you can start organizing those.
And that PvP thing today was really a lot of fun. We could even do like simpler ones, just get ad hoc, kind of get a few groups together and just go play.
Yeah, I think we some other stuff that was tossed in the hat was stuff like just having nights where we go to the arena to try different stuff with our classes and things like that. Um, it's just a matter of spending time here or there. We're not going to
Yeah,
worry so much about staying on the front page of the scoreboard right now. I don't think that's really all that important. It's too much work, for those of us that are staying. It saps too much fun away when we could be doing other more fun things.
I don't mind doing a couple subjugations every now and then. It gets me out grinding for money.
We'll still be doing subjugations. It's just that in order to stay on the front page, you have to do really big subjugations that are typically oversized for the number of people that you have online, and you have to do them every day. And so you end up doing subjugations for 4 hours, and everybody needs to do them that possibly can. And it's not fun because for a lot of people, it's all of their playtime.
Yeah.
Also, if everyone missed the PvP post, we don't mind for whatever reason. If you want to go to war over some little factor with some other guild, just let an officer know, and we really don't mind doing that.
Yeah, you just
Yeah,
gotta, take a look at the situation and realize what's gonna happen next in that aspect. We don't mind fighting, but do realize if you end up in a fight with the wrong person, we're gonna be dying a lot and hugging the safe zone. It's not the worst thing in the world, but we don't want to do that every day, right? The fighting, no problem.
Like the paint trains thing. If we end up war decking one of them, they're gonna come back with 3 war decks against us. That sort of thing.
That's the
It's
only
like,
way they
well,
do it.
that's how they do it, Maybe it's like, you know what, okay, how you guys doing? We'll be over here. Y'all have a good day. Does anyone have anything else? No questions, really?
Okay, then we're done.